Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Clay, thanks for making me feel real old. And I have a former player who's actually a board chairperson, not just a board member now. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir.
What I want to do tonight, if I can, I think you guys are aware we keep you pretty up to date what we try to do. And again, we're constantly looking at programs. We're constantly looking at data in order to try to do what's best for the kids in our district. We'll always make a decision in the best interest of the children, least inconvenience on any adults involved, from faculty, staff, to parents, but we do it in that order. And so what I want to do tonight is talk to you a little bit about some proposed changes to magnet programs that the administration would like to bring to you tonight, give you a couple months to think about this, see if there's any questions we can answer, any concerns that you may have, and we'll bring it back to you in January on that January meeting for a vote decision on where you want to go with these programs, okay? And if you'll allow me, what I'm going to do is start with elementary. I'm going to jump to high school, and then I'm going to come back to middle, because middle the other two pretty clear cut, but I want to get back to the middle school in order to maybe give a little more detailed explanation on those, okay? So elementary-wise, we're going to look at it's the recommendation of the administration to look at the Montessori School and Greenwood School of Inquiry hosted at Hodges and recommend to you that we discontinue those two magnet programs at the end of the 24-25 school year. Let me give you a little rationale behind what we're proposing and why we're proposing this particular change at the elementary level. We're having an extremely difficult time. I think you guys are all well aware of the teacher shortage that we face, period. When you get into a specialty situation, whether that be special ed, whether that be math or science, especially in the secondary level, you're looking at another specialty area with Montessori requiring a master's degree in that particular field. And we're too short at the moment. So staffing and certification is also an issue. It's a big issue. When we crunch data, we look at data, the performance of the kids is also an issue. That we take very seriously. Some of the brightest, in most cases, some of the brightest children that we have in our district are being served in the Montessori school as well. They do not perform on level with our kids in the early elementary schools, but they do catch up because they're extremely bright. We must push those children as well. Our focus on Tier 1 instruction has worked in our elementary schools. We're sitting with 6 excellent and 2 good. There's not a place in District 50 that we do not provide a quality education for our elementary students. So our recommendation would be to dissolve those two at the end of the current year. Any questions about that one?
Mr. Nichols, make sure you explain that those kids will be allowed to stay, if they're in the Montessori, they'll be allowed to stay at Rice. Any kid that's in the GIS program or GSI program at Hodges will be able to stay at Hodges. It won't make anybody move. It's just with Hodges that the GSI takes away from our standards that we need to teach our young people, and that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years, so we felt like that it was just something that needed to be changed. You will be able to apply and transfer just like any other school. If you want to go to Hodges, you'll be able to fill out a transfer and have that option, provided we have space.
Yeah, I'm going to hit School of Inquiry as well.
I'm sorry.
You're all right. You're all right. Just kind of going through them one at a time to see if there was any questions about Montessori in that particular situation first. And again, our transfer policies are our transfer policies. Any child who starts at a certain school will get to finish through the grade level that's there. So that needs to be made up front. And I'll talk about that on a further slide that's going to answer that question about what we're proposing there. All right. GSI, when Dr. Glenn's administration started, I guess this is year 6 now, actually a little bit before that, probably the actual inquiry piece was kind of fading away. Hodges has always been a good school, but where it performed last year, I think, is indicative of where it should be performing. And, you know, we really put a focus, again, on teaching those standards, that Tier 1 core instruction, phonics back in, the literacy push, and they performed exceptional. I mean, it was well over 70%. I think you saw those things. So what we want to do is really look at that again in that GSI magnet program. Again, those kids Dr. Glenn mentioned, I'll go into detail about transfers a little bit later. They will be able to stay if they're in that school now. So it's not like they have to leave if they're not zoned for it. But, you know, again, the transportation piece is something we'll talk about a little bit later on there as well. All right, so anything with elementary?
Any questions, board?
Okay. Well, I'm going to jump to high school. Avid, it'd be our recommendation that we also discontinue Avid at the end of the 24-25 school year. Currently, you know that Avid has been shifted to Emerald, where Emerald is serving all of the Avid kids. That's due to numbers being small. I guess it's a positive thing that kind of what happened is these students start to thrive and excel, and they want to take more classes, dual enrollment classes, AP classes. One of the requirements of Avid is that you take an elective year-round, so it eats away their opportunities to take higher level courses that they want to take. That is the driving force behind our recommendation for discontinuing Avid at the high school. Second one's Greenwood High's Fine Arts Academy. We're no longer going to require an audition or an application for that process. The courses will still be the same. I think you guys are aware that we've added additional teachers in those areas at Greenwood High in order to serve kids. We feel like we can serve more if we open up that and remove that audition application process there. Still, we will have requirements that if they meet those requirements of taking a certain number of courses in their focus area, again, open to both school students, then they'll be able to graduate with a core that emphasizes their success there in that. Any questions about high school?
Any questions? Okay.
All right. Middle school. ACT, STEMS, Medical Magnet, Avid. We'll phase those, we're a recommendation to phase those out for rising 7th and 8th grade students. So what that means is, and I'm going to go in a lot more detail about how we're going to make this work and still offer focus electives for these kids. So current students there now, 6th and 7th, who will be rising 7th and 8th, they won't change anything. So the program they're used to, they will finish middle school in the same way. ACTS at Brewer, Avid at Brewer, Medical Magnet Northside, Avid at Northside, as well as STEMS and Avid at Westview. Okay, 6th graders, we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about on this next slide. Incoming 6th graders would have a choice of focus electives. So part of getting better at the middle school, the success at the elementary school has really had us looking for the last couple years of how we continue that into the middle school. And what we're looking at now is really, it's a 9-period day, but it focuses on 8 periods plus a lunch, which is going to give 90 minutes for ELA, 90 minutes for math, and then 45 for a bunch of other things that are mixed in there. It'll also give us an opportunity to provide our teachers with 90 minutes planning at the middle school, which we think is going to help them tremendously in what they're doing in their opportunity to help our kids be successful. With that schedule, what it allows us to do is offer 2 related art electives. There's related arts, and Watts, make sure I get them right, but PE is obviously required, art, music, and some type of computer course. The health is a component there as well. And what we're going to do is within that develop a schedule so the rising 6th graders will be able to go to their zone school and still have those elective choices. So if I'm interested in STEMs, I'm going to be able to go to any of the 3 schools and still take those STEMs courses. I'm going to be able to go, if I'm Medical Magnet, to any of the 3 schools and take those electives as well. Currently how it sets, if you're in STEMs, you take one elective that's different from everybody else, which is your focal point, okay? So that's kind of what it is. We're still going to offer an opportunity for kids to choose. They'll also be able to, if they choose at 11 years old, to take a STEMs focus and look at those classes, and they say, well, you know what, I'd rather sing and focus on that. They can change the next year. So some options in there to give them opportunity to do that as they move forward as well. Okay, this will help. You know, the other good thing about this is the success at the elementary level has also brought it to our attention in the last couple of years, especially this year, that we've identified like 130 kids that would be qualified. We're already cutting kids from these programs now. We've got more that are going to be qualified because of success at the elementary school, it makes no sense for us to limit these options for those kids. So that's the driving force behind why we're making this recommendation
So
as
Mr.
well.
Nickles, they won't be required to do like an application process or anything like that?
No,
It'll be available for all?
yes, ma'am.
Good.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions about middle school?
Have you started looking at transportation?
Transportation, we won't provide transportation.
If you're
Okay.
zone Westview, you can go to Westview. If you'd like to transfer to another school, you can actually put that transfer in, depending on availability. He's got it up here, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm taking this thunder away, so I'm gonna hush, man.
No, you're good. You're good. You're the boss. Whatever you say. Transfer request information, just so you understand, part of the policy and procedures now that Ms. Loudon deals with when it comes to transfers is, again, once a child is accepted, transfer's been requested, they've been accepted into a school, they're at that school as long as they're in good standing with the principal, throughout whatever the grade level is. So obviously elementary, once they go, they can stay there till the 5th grade. The only difference, I think, is K4. Sometimes we have to place some places, so that doesn't count, but K5 does. So if they're in kindergarten and they're at a particular school, and we'll just use Hodges as an example, and they want to stay and they can provide their own transportation, then they're welcome to stay all the way through the 5th grade. So in this case, we're kind of focused on middle school. If 7th or 8th grader, next year, they don't have to go anywhere. They stay exactly where they are. 6th graders should go to their zone school, and they'll have the opportunity to choose that focus and do what they need to do there in order to take the classes that they need to do. If they would like to transfer, then they would follow the same procedures as anybody else and put in for a transfer. Yes, ma'am.
Now, the children in my zone, they are zoned for Brewer Middle School. And I have some parents that have wanted to put their children in a different middle school, so they would have to put the
Yes.
documentation in, the request in with
Yes.
the district.
6th graders, yes. Rising 6th graders, yes, ma'am.
And when they put that in, if they wanted to go to,
Westview.
right,
They'd have to provide their own transportation.
okay.
And also, depending on space at that school, whether or not we could let them in. There'll have to be a cutoff.
And our goal when we talk about space is going to be looking at those 4 core teachers and how many kids that they'll serve. And one of the big pieces of success that we've had at elementary is keeping that class size as small as we can. So we'll look at it that way. And we definitely don't want to go over 21 if we can make that work and financially make that work. We want to keep it at 21 or less. So that would be a huge factor in the space availability. And that's kind of what I mean. Not do you have room in the building for them, but can we keep our class sizes low? And that helps the teachers, help the kids.
This allows us an opportunity to provide a STEM emphasis or a dance emphasis or a medical magnet emphasis to so many more students.
Yes, ma'am, and the opportunity to change at 11 and 12 years old if they want to change at the end of that year to do something different.
And the way these elementary students are performing, we are going to have more students that
Oh, yes.
A lot. It was glaringly stood out to us. It's a lot more.
right.
And-
Which is
and
a great thing.
It's a good problem to have, but we need to address that problem.
I'll
And
kind of cringe when we hear about change, but in the long run, this is going to
A good
benefit
thing.
our kids.
That's right.
we feel this is the right thing to do for kids. It's obviously going to be your choice, and we're not going to cry over anything anyway. But we do feel like, again, this is what's best for kids, and we do feel comfortable with this new schedule that we're going to be able to offer a lot more to the kids, even to the point of putting in civics and things that'll help prepare them for high school a little bit better, and just for life in general. With these electives that they'll get as well. So we're real excited about that. We're finally able to speak it out loud that we think we can make this thing work and roll it out, and this is just part of it. And again, it all comes down to being able to offer more to more. And again, our job is to serve all of our kids, and we need to open the door a little bit more. Good problem to have. I mean, bottom line is more coming that they're qualified to look at those, and we want to give them that opportunity.
Those are the kind of problems we like.
That's a good problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good problem.
Problems.
All right, there will be a letter sent out to answer those questions for current GSI and Montessori students, we'll get that done. Those letters, there's actually gonna be a letter going to all parents that are involved in this, ASAP. Probably gonna go out before I get through talking. But we're gonna make sure that they get some information. We're also going to, look at providing the frequently asked questions, just kind of give you an example here. But what we'd like is for you to refer folks to this actual website and then the email address that's there. We'll come back in December and we'll have you a very detailed, you're probably going to get just a generic reply when anybody comes in and asks a question through it, but we'll come back to you guys with the questionnaire, answers to these frequently asked questions, and we'll try to answer every one of them that we can. And we'll bring that back in December. And obviously, if there's any questions that you guys have, Ms. Watts and myself will be available to try to answer any parent questions or anything that you guys run into that you don't feel comfortable trying to answer. But I think if they'll go here and voice concern or whatever they need to do, we'll get that answered. And then we'll come back, and again, what our plan would be is to bring these recommendations back to you guys for a vote in January.
Other comments, board?
One comment that I had, some of my best AP physics students actually came from not the STEMS program, but from the ACTS program. And that's just part of it. These kids have so many different interests, and I think this offers an opportunity for more and more students to be involved.
I appreciate that comment, Mr. Conner, because we see that some of our kids qualify for all three of them.
Yeah.
And they can't make a choice. And then they make a choice, and then they're locked in or they lose their seat. That's just another one of the small things that we feel like we can eliminate that barrier. And again, I can tell you, they know a lot more than I did at 11, but I would have had no concept about which one I wanted to do at 11 years old. And if they want to change, then they ought to have the opportunity to do that too. If we can provide it and we feel comfortable, we can provide it.
Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Nickles and Ms. Watson for all the hard work they put in. I put this problem out there for them, and this is kind of, I gave them a very, very rough, as Brad says, I wrote a check that they had to cash. So they've done a great job coming together and working with principals to come up with this schedule that's going to benefit all of our kids. I'm so excited about it, just from being a principal at Westview and seeing those kids that really could have benefited from being in a STEMS focus or an art focus or a medical magnet focus that didn't have that opportunity. I felt like was a injustice at that point in time, and now we're in a position that we need to do something different so that we can service more of our kids that are doing their part in the classroom. That's what we've asked them to do, and they've stepped up, so we need to find more opportunities for them.
Yeah, I'll say this. We had this discussion today. A lot of times in education, Mr. Conner, you put in a lot of years. This is 29 for me. We look at the next year and the next year and the next year, and maybe some of you guys in corporate, you look at a little bit bigger picture down the road. I think in probably my last 10 years in education, we really do start to look at down the road, planting the tree, the shade you'll never sit under, the old saying goes, and want to leave it a lot better than we found it. And we've actually probably are going faster than we really thought we would in really changing this community's outlook going forward. So real excited about it. I do believe this is a good opportunity for kids, or I wouldn't be standing up here talking to you about it. But I appreciate your time. Again, if there's any questions you have. Yeah. All right. I appreciate that. Probably the biggest factor, one of the biggest factors of our success at elementary has been our shift to what we call readiness grouping of like learners and performers, and that will continue into the middle school as well. So again, we're going to give our teachers an opportunity. The worst thing you can do to a very good teacher is give them this space here, a gap between where kids are at that moment. Ends up being 5 or 6 different levels in where they are, and there's no way to help anybody, jack all trades, master none situation. So one of the things that we identified early on in Dr. Glenn's administration was, we're killing and burning out great, hard-working teachers by putting them in these situations. At the high school, it's already that way. It's based on like learners in there. It's fluid. Based on their performance, it moves, it changes, because wherever that kid is when the light bulb comes on, then we need to put them where they need to be to challenge them. And so that is also going up into the middle schools next year.
I just want to echo and say how much I appreciate the time and the energy and thoughtfulness that you all have put in to creating this plan. Just last week, I was having a conversation with several other parents who were so concerned about their rising sixth grader having to go through the process, make a decision, when in reality we're putting parameters on a student that shouldn't be put at that age. And I'm just so appreciative that now all students will have an opportunity in middle school for all of these experiences. From a community perspective, from a workforce perspective, we want well-rounded future leaders. So I commend you all and thank you. Sounds like a great plan.
Are there other comments from the board? Well, I'll just say, I think I'm gonna kind of play a different role here for our board members. We have to remember that this is probably gonna be somewhat of a polarizing topic, and that you can expect probably to hear from some of your constituents. And I would encourage you that if there are questions that you cannot answer, to please pass them on to the administration so that they can answer those questions as best we can. And of course, you know, I and I'm sure Dr. Glenn will be open that if any of you have any suggestions between now and January, please share with us.
Yeah, that's what we want to give you
The
plenty of time.
FAQ looks good. FAQ's perfect. That I think can head off some things.
Yeah.
Well, we want to give people an opportunity. If somebody may see something that we can't see. If we see a real problem with this, then we can always back up. We've not found it yet. That's the reason we brought it to you and are recommending it. But if it's out there, somebody will probably find it, and then we can look at it and make sure we address any problems that come up. Nothing's perfect, but we need to be better.
And if push comes to shove, we may need to do a forum for parents.
Hey, I've done many of those.
Right, yeah.
Felt like Phil Donahue there for the first year in my life, so as a superintendent.
We're welcome for questions and concerns. We'll be glad to answer those. So just, that would be a great place to start, or to give us a call, and we'll do what we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.